And here we have Victoria, the creme de la creme of the Davos Spielzeugmuseum, the most wonderful piece, and behind her, in full array, all of her many gowns and many accessories here that I'm going to be showing you. Victoria herself is a beauty. She has a very, very fine portrait face with very pale, elegant bisque, beautiful eyes, and she has the very rare body designed by Clement. Clement was a Parisian shoemaker, and he worked with making leather shoes on molds. He came up with the idea that you could make a doll body in the same way. You could take leather, stretch it over molds, sew it together, and have a hollow leather body. Very, very refined, very lightweight. Whenever I have a Clement fashion, and I don't have them very often because they're pretty rare, and I hand it to a collector and I say, hold this doll, they immediately kind of jump back because they're always surprised how very light the body is. Very, very refined and elegant. She is wearing an equestrian outfit. So incredible to find, with a very long skirt designed to sit elegantly side saddle on the horse with her equestrian beaver hat. Very, very beautifully done. And so extraordinary, the riding crop, with the horse head on top, or gargoyle, and the fringe tassel on the bottom. But let me tell you about Victoria. Victoria is not only notable because of her wonderful costumes, which we're going to see, but because she has a really wonderful provenance. She lived in the family of Lady Alexander from Kent from the time she was born, shall we say, which would be 1867, until 1944, stayed in the same family. Family evidently traveled to Paris and made very luxurious trips there, because we know, because the trunk has the original Parisian label on it, and the costumes are very, very definitely of the Parisian couturier styles for children's poupée clothing. In 1944, Lady Alexander was very involved in humanitarian efforts for prisoners of war, working with the Red Cross, and she decided that she would send her doll and her trousseau to Raffle to raise funds for these humanitarian efforts. The doll was put in a store window in Haversham, Kent, where people could buy raffle tickets, and they bought over 2,000 raffle tickets in a short period of time. And a family won it. The family of Great Aunt Annie won the doll, and she went to live in their family, and she lived there from 1944 until 1994, 50 years later. The doll had been passed along in that family, inherited by a young woman who determined she needed to sell it. She was put to auction, acquired by Angela Prater for the Davos Spielzeugmuseum. And if you ever hear her tell about this, that she was so terrified when she bought this doll. She said, "What have I done? What have I done?" But she said, "I was like hypnotized. I put my hand up and I just knew I had to bring that doll to the museum." It was a wise choice because it became the focal point for the museum. Sometime later, a woman came to the museum to visit, saw the doll, and said that she had been the owner of the doll, and she sent some additional material along to Angela Prater telling about the history of the doll, which is included. And also included with the doll is this wonderful raffle ticket, said early Victorian doll and trousseau. All her clothes made by Parisian dressmakers, and you could buy your raffle ticket for 6D. What's 6D? I don't know. Whatever that amount of money would have been, you could have bought your raffle ticket for that amount of money. So it has this wonderful provenance, has been in only 3 families until now: the original Alexander family, the family of Great Aunt Annie, and then in the care of Angela Prater at the Davos Spielzeugmuseum. And let's look at her clothes. I already told you about the equestrian outfit with the wonderful riding crop, and let me just take each of the gowns and just hold it up and turn it around so you can see them in their wonderful, wonderful glory. They are impeccably preserved, each of them. This blue one, again, the use of the colors, very, very interesting, a very classic use of the royal blue with the aqua silk. And look at how the bows extend all the way down the back. Very, very lovely draping of the skirt, and wonderful little details of lace trim. Again, perfectly preserved costume. I know that some of you, probably myself included, would consider this the most incredible gown of all of them. Of ivory satin, likely her wedding gown. Turning it around, lacing up of the back. Wonderful train, the crepe de chine, pleats around the bottom, double rows of them, and then a swath of drape of the crepe de chine around the skirt itself, and garlands of flowers cascading over there. Now, it gets even better, because with it is a matching coronet for her hair, very, very elegant, and with it are this wonderful pair of satin shoes with little heels, leather soles with the CC insignia on the bottom, the French shoemaker for dolls that made wonderful, wonderful shoes. And still, with it, elbow-length gloves with their little buttons coming up the side. Elbow-length gloves, because of course, they were short-sleeved gown. You had to have that to be quite elegant. You couldn't have your elbows exposed. And finally, with her this ensemble, a very elegant fan with filigree cut top, gold etching, a tasseled hanging cord, and little hand-painted floral inserts in between. Just an extraordinary, extraordinary costume. And while we're looking at accessories, let me just show you a few others, and then we'll go back to the gowns. Bone-handled parasol. Perfect in every way. The quality of lace on this is just quite phenomenal. She has 3 additional pair of shoes to the satin ones that she wears with her gown. I think they're all signed CC. These are the little ankle boots, signed CC. This is another pair of ankle boots with little heels, signed CC. And then a pair not signed CC, little black slippers with the silver buckles. Look at this wonderful fan. Royal purple, the color we all love. You can see it on the back. On the front, you see the bone fan with the filigree cutwork and the hand-painted flowers. Very, very beautiful right there. And her jewelry. Wonderful turquoise bead jewelry. Look at this. A little coronet for her hair. How rare is that to find? Along with it, we have a wonderful little necklace. We have a fob with a watch. We have earrings. We have another little necklace with gold beads. Wonderful, wonderful jewelry. And she has still other accessories. She has a flannel blanket with a leather wrap. She has a muff inside its original cylinder container. Wonderful muff. She has stationery. She has handbags. She has gloves. She has all of these rare treasures. She has so many hats. There are, I think, like 8 different bonnets, including some wonderful bonnets to wear around the house. This one was a particular favorite of mine because it is very, very dainty with little turquoise flowers on it. Very fine. And just in case she didn't like her wig, she has an extra wig. Very fine. Now, let me show you the rest of her gowns, but also don't forget all of the great underwear that came along with her too. This is the only gown that shows any wear at all. The rest of them are as though they are pristine from the time they were made, but this one is, because the cotton has frailty, but it is still an extraordinary confection. This gown is quite lovely, and it's very, very classic color. Of the black gowns, each has its own unique type of treasure. This one has the midnight brown velvet skirt base, and then the long over jacket, lace trim, and turning it around, wonderful bustle back with great detail. It's very difficult in showing the costumes, of the black costumes in particular, because you can't see all of the detail that went into them. And I just wish that every one of you had the opportunity to look and examine these costumes in detail. Unfortunately, it wouldn't do the costumes any good, but I really wish you could, because they are truly little works of fashion art. In another costume of the black and brown period, we have the very, very midnight black-brown almost velvet skirt, and then the brown jacket that is amazing. Check the sleeves. Those wide pagoda sleeves with a black silk edging on them. Edging is continued around the entire jacket front, onto the lapels of the jacket, lace edging, and then this really quite ingenious and pretty lavender satin lining of the sleeves. And you can see how the back is cut as well. Quite beautiful. Back extending down, and the skirt under it. Beautifully cut. This is probably my favorite. I don't know if this is a day dress. People live differently than we do today. But I will tell you that this gown is of the very, very finest white cotton weave. And it is slightly fitted in the front. It has nice shaping to it, but a flat front. And look at the bands. You have embroidery. And then you have woven net with embroidery on it. Then you have a band with all of the tucks. So you have all of these different varieties of banding, which gives it a wonderful look. And then you get up in the yoke, and instead of a horizontal fit, it turns around and becomes vertical. Very, very different. Wonderful pagoda sleeves, once again. The edging down the front, the ruffle. It's very, very great. And then you come to the back, and look at this. Wow. High-waisted in the back, a fitted back bodice, and then the long train, the long loose train with 4 pleats above the waist, falling into this train with very, very narrow pleats edging the bottom of the skirt. Wonderful gown. Who can ever get enough of blue on their dolls? This beautiful blue silk. And this wonderful, you might not think that you would like a checkered pattern, but when you look and see how this is made, such extraordinary detail. The wonderful fitted jacket, and then the checker design is offset by just the crispness of the ice blue sleeves and the banding along here. There is a little tie with silk fringe that goes with it for around the neck, a little stole. And again, look at the cuffs. We have the checkered band, we have the ice blue silk band, and then finally we have the lace band underneath that. All of these little things. The French doll makers, or the costume makers for French dolls at this time period, had this perfect instinct of just how far to go, just how outrageous they could be without overkill, without going that one step too much. And this costume is a perfect example of that type of thing. And finally, for days when Madame wished to be very, very elegant, she would choose to wear her black taffeta gown trimmed with black Alisson lace and tiny, tiny, tiny little black beads in bands all along the edging of the jacket and the skirt. Very finely made. Once again, when you're not seeing it when you're not actually looking at it and holding it, it's very, very hard to see all of these wonderful details, and I really wish I could share the inspection of this gown in firsthand with all of you, because you would appreciate how wonderful it is. Here you can see a little bit of the side and back detail of the gown. And that's what I'm going to show you on the costumes. Let me just tell you that there is underwear, there are about 8 other bonnets, there are other accessory pieces, just so many things that go into this, and each of them is very, very fine. Look at that little dandy hat. Is that a sweet little thing? Each of them perfectly made and preserved. The last owner of the doll, before it went to Angela Prater, was the one who named the doll Victoria, because she said she always reminded me of Queen Victoria, and she said I bestowed the name on her. And there is a letter from that owner that comes along with the doll telling how she gave her the name Victoria. So one of the wonderful highlights of the Angela Prater Spielzeugmuseum in Davos, Switzerland. A great, great job done by a wonderful collector with an impeccable eye. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this little vignette into the dolls and some of the dolls and their costumes from the Davos Museum.